right, this is just a review of multiplying by 10, 100, and 1,000. The key when we're doing this is really to look at your zeros and think about uh, how your number is growing, right? So let's just start with 3 and 6 tenths. If I multiply 3 and 6 tenths times 10, I'm going to move my decimal over one place, and it's going to give me the answer of 36. Okay, it's going to give me 36. That makes sense. I could break this into, if we just ignore the 6 tenths there, if you think if I have 3 groups of 10, I have 30. Okay, so we would have a number greater than 30 on that. Let's look again. So let's do a couple together. So if I have 12 and 1/10, and let's multiply it times 10. If I multiply it times 10, I'm going to move that decimal from here. I'm going to move it over 1. And I'm going to get 121, which you can write either way. If I multiply it by 100, instead of moving my decimal only one place, I'm going to move it 1, 2. So looking here, I'm going to go 1, 2. It's going to give me a holding place there. 1,210 times 0, or in 0 tenths, 1,210. That's how we write it without the decimal point. So we're just moving the decimal point over. Let's multiply it now times 1,000. And again, when we look at 1,000, we have 1, 2, 3 zeros. So we're going to move the decimal 1, 2, 3. So we'll be able to put that in there, and I get 12,100. And you could just write it this way as well. Okay, 12,100. So we're just moving that decimal point over either 1, 2, or 3 spaces. This is really important, especially since we are right now working on doing some metric conversions. Okay, so let me go back here. Let me get to my pen. We'll clear the screen. Let's do another example. We'll say we have 5 and 75 hundredths. That's how we say that. And if we multiply that times 10, right, we're just going to move the decimal one place, and it would give us 57 and 5 tenths. If we multiply 5 and 75 hundredths by 100, we're moving it 2 decimal places. So 1, 2, the decimal is going to come after that second 5. So we just get 575, which you can write this way as well. And we'll do by 1,000. So let's look over here at times 1,000. And yes, if you said I'm going to move the decimal 3 places, here we go. 1, 2, 3. So we'll pop in a 0 there because that's our placeholder, right? It's not adding any value. It's just holding the place so we get the right number, which is 5,750. Okay, or 5750. Sorry, that's kind of hard to see, but that's what we're working with here. So we're moving the decimal point, and that is really helpful when we are, here's my pen, doing metric conversions, because in metric conversions, so let's say we're working kilometers to meters. And I need to think about what is a kilometer, what is the relationship to meters. And I know 1 kilometer has 1,000 meters. So if I have 2 kilometers and I want to know how many meters that is, I'm going to take my kilometers and I'm going to multiply it by 1,000, which again, thinking about the number 2, we're going to move the decimal point 3 places. So 1, 2, 3. So it's 2,000. Most of the time, when it's just a number like 2 kilometers to meters, you're going to say to yourself, well, I know 1 kilometer is 1,000. So 2 kilometers would be 2,000. You're not going to do a lot of fancy stuff. But in the older grades and in these junior grades, like grade 5 and 6, you're going to be working with things like 6 and 4/10 kilometers, or what you would say is 6.4 kilometers. So, well, what is 0.4 of a kilometer? And so then we're going to know we need to get to meters. We want to know what that means. So we're going to go from here, and we know we have to multiply it by 1,000 because kilo means 1,000. And then we know to move our decimal 3 places. So if I move my decimal 3 places, I have 6, 4. So that's 1, 2, 3, 0, 0. 6,400 meters. Okay, so we're just popping and moving the decimal over. If we were doing, let's say, centimeters, so let's say I have 23 and 2/10 centimeters, which you could have, and we want to go to millimeters. Remember, those are the really, 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 really little tiny things. We're going to say, well, how many millimeters are in a centimeter? And we know it's 10. And we're going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit, so we multiply. 23 and 2/10 times 10. There's 1 0, so we're going to be moving that decimal over, and it's 232 millimeters. So really understanding how to multiply by 10, 100, and 1,000 is going to help you with your metric conversions. Now, we're going on these examples, we went from a larger unit, which is a centimeter, to a smaller unit, or we went from kilometers, which is a greater distance, and we went to meters, or we could go from meters, which is larger than a centimeter. When you're going from a big unit to a smaller unit, you're multiplying. But when we are going from, let's say we have 4,000 meters and we want to know how many kilometers that is, rather than multiplying, our math changes to division. Okay, so 4,000 meters, we know that there's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So that will tell us what we need to divide by. So here's my 4,000. Here's my 1,000. We're actually going to move our decimal this way. Instead of moving the decimal to the right, we now move it to the left. And for sake of argument, I'm going to pretend our decimal is right there. Okay. And we're going to move it 3 spots. 1, 2, 3. And that's 4 kilometers. That makes sense because if 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters and I have 4,000 meters, I would have 4 groups of 1,000 or 4 kilometers. Let's look at another one. So let's do one that's maybe trickier. So maybe you have 3,620 meters and you want to know how many kilometers that is. Again, thinking through division. So we're going from a smaller unit to the bigger unit, and we're going to divide. And we're still going to divide by 1,000 because we're working with kilometers and meters. Same thing here. There's your decimal point, would be at the end of that number. 1, 2, 3. So we're going to move it backwards 3. 1, 2, 3. And our answer would be it is 3 and 62 kilometers. So a little more than 3.5 kilometers. That's the trick with division. Multiplication, when we multiply, we're moving the decimal point to the right when we multiply. So if I do this and I multiply by 100, there's 2 of those. 1, 2 decimal points. 1, 2, 4, 0. It's supposed to be a 0. That looks like a 6. It is a 0. So multiply goes to the right. But if we're dividing, we're going to the, oops, let's get purple. There we go. If we're dividing, we're going to the left. The decimal point's going to the left. So if I had, oopsies. If I had 620, we'll say centimeters, and I want to know how many meters. So we're going from the smaller unit to the bigger. And I know that there's 100 centimeters in 1 meter, and we want to figure out how many meters. So I'm going to divide. I am going to divide my 620 centimeters by 100. So 620 divided by 100. Again, there's 2 zeros here. My decimal point would be here because it's just 620. And I'm going to move it backwards too. So 1, 2, and it's going to give me 6.20. So it's 6 and 20 hundredths meters. Okay, 620 centimeters would give me 6.20 or 6 and 20 hundredths meters. I'm going to give you a couple practice ones here to do. So you can pause the video while you work through the math and just see, you can self-check. So let's do this. Let's say I've got 6 and 3/10 kilometers. And I want to know how many meters. Remember, we're going from a big unit to a small unit. So we're going to multiply. Pause the video now and figure out how many meters that would be. Okay, you're back, and you should have paused the video there and figured it out. There's 3. We're going from a big unit to a smaller unit, so we're going to multiply. So 6 and 3/10, we need to move the decimal 3 places. 1, 2, 3. Fill that in with zeros, and your answer is 6,300 meters. Okay, 6,300 meters. We're going to do another one. So get ready, and you can pause the video once the problem's up. Let's go from a bigger unit, and this time we're going to go from meters, and we're going to go to centimeters. So let's say you have 7 and 2/10 of a meter, and I want to know how many centimeters. So we're going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit, and I know that there's 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So I'm going to multiply by 100. And I'll give you a second to move your decimal point, and you can pause the video while you do this math and then check your work. All right, so hopefully you've paused the video, you've done the math. 7 and 2, we're going to move it 1, 2, and your answer is 720 centimeters. 720 centimeters. Okay, now let's go the opposite way. Let's go from, we'll say we have 850 centimeters, and I want to know how many meters there are. So now, instead of multiplying, we're going to divide because we're going from the smaller unit to the bigger unit. The relationship is still the same. The relationship between centimeters and meters is there's 100 centimeters in a meter. So let's divide 850, okay, by 100. Remember, your decimal is going to go this way. Take a moment to see if you can work that out, and pause the video and come back when you're ready with your answer. Okie dokie, hopefully you paused the video. There are 2 zeros here, so my decimal point would be here, okay, at the end of 850, and I'm going to move it over 1, 2, so my new place is here, 8 and 5/10, or we could also read that as 8.5 meters. Let's do another one. And let's go from meters to kilometers. So let's say we have, I don't know, 8,150 meters. And I want to know how many kilometers that is. So think about your relationship, meters, kilometers. And we're going to do divide by how many meters are in a kilometer? There's 1,000. So we'll be dividing by 1,000, 8,150. Remember, your decimal point is here. How many zeros do you have? Remember, you're going to move the decimal to the left now because we're dividing. Pause the video, solve the problem, and come back in just a second to check your work. Okie dokie. Hopefully you have counted. You have 3 zeros. So we're going to move this. 1, 2, 3. It's going to go there. It's 8 and 15 hundredths of a kilometer. Okie dokie. If you want to do some more, I'm going to put a few on the screen here just to practice. And you can pause, work them all out, and I'll come give you the answers. So let's start. We have 73 meters, and we want to know how many centimeters that is. So bigger to smaller is going to be multiply. And let's do, we have 520 millimeters, and I want to know how many centimeters. This is going to be different because we're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, and that will be divide. See if you can work this out, and then come back and we'll look at the answers. Okay, so starting here, 73 meters to centimeters. We're going a big unit to a small unit, so we're multiplying. And the relationship is there are 100 centimeters in a meter. So we're going to multiply by 100. Imagine your decimal point is there on your 73. You'd move it over 2 times to get 7,300 centimeters. Okay, 7,300 centimeters, or how many centimeters there would be in 73 meters. Okay, essentially, we're just counting to 173 times. Okay, and we would go 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000. That's 10. We'd keep counting. We'd end up with this. We're going from millimeters to centimeters. Now, this one is a little different. Millimeters to centimeters. Small unit to big unit. So we are going to divide, and we know there are 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. So again, coming back here to 520, we're dividing. Decimal point is going to go to the left. So we only have 1 0. We're going to move that right there, and it's going to give us 52 centimeters. Okay, this is something that's worth practicing. It will help you get better and more fluent with your mathematics and your conversions that we're working on. Hope this video helped, and keep practicing. And remember, even if it doesn't make sense yet, we will keep trying and it will make sense. I believe in you. You can do it. See everybody later.